This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name is Russell Osborne and this is an independent England football supporters podcast. I hope you're well and I hope you've enjoyed the recent episodes that I've put out. There was the most recent one where I spoke with Lloyd Owers and we spoke about the Marshall Islands. Quite an interesting one, that one. Slightly offbeat as to what obviously the Three Lions podcast is normally about, but sometimes I think actually that's really interesting. I'd like to know a little bit more, and I hope you enjoyed it too. And of course, there was much love for Mark Griffiths and the episode where we spoke on the ball travel. Both of those, if you've not heard them yet, they are available at your podcast provider of choice or threelionspodcast.com, as are all the other episodes. This is 248, I think. All the previous ones, they are available for your ears to tune into. Firstly, just some news on the upcoming Italy away game for the senior men. Now, the Italian FA have advised our allocation will be 2,482 for the game to be played in Naples on the 23rd of March. Although worth reading the small print from ESTC, England Supporters Travel Club, this is yet to be finalised. According to the Italian FA as well, the capacity of the ground has been reduced for this game to 48,467. If you're intending to go, you need to apply for a ticket by Thursday the 16th of February. ESTC have also indicated that information regarding ticket collection times, dates, locations may be at short notice. And they're also indicating for fans to take the organised coaches that are supposed to be being laid on by the local authorities and to not make your own way to the stadium. You might want to keep tabs on your ESTC communication to stay up to date with it all. And as I always try to do, I'm hoping to bring a preview of the game nearer the time. Now, for the first time this year, we have some games to look forward to as the Arnold Clark Cup returns. It is a 4-team round-robin tournament that made its debut last year and proved to be the springboard for the Lionesses in what was a record-breaking year. Last time around, it featured Spain, Canada and Germany at 3 different grounds. It wasn't big on goals, only 10 scored in the 6 games, but England topped the group and Leah Williamson raised the trophy at Molineux after beating Germany 3-1. This year, the competition returns on the 16th of February and runs until the 22nd. It features 3 new sides, Italy, Belgium and South Korea. Although none of those are new opponents to the Lionesses, and I'll get to our record against them all in a moment. But each match day features 2 games at the same venue. So match day 1 is Thursday the 16th of February. First up, Italy against Belgium, then the Lionesses against South Korea. Both of those are being played at Stadium MK. There's, of course, Milton Keynes. Then Sunday the 19th, England take on Italy at 3:15, followed by South Korea against Belgium. That's taking place at Coventry's Building Society Arena, or the CBS Arena. Still can't get my head around that name. It'll always be the Rico, won't it? Then finally, Wednesday the 22nd of February at Bristol City's Ashton Gate, South Korea play Italy, followed by England against Belgium. If you're not going, then all the games, they are being shown on ITV. although I'm not quite sure yet if it's ITV1 or ITV4. You're going to have to check your listings nearer the time. But if you are looking to go, and I think tickets are still available for some of the games, head to arnoldclarkcup.com. Now, the last time the Lionesses played was in November of last year when they went to Spain to play 2 friendlies against Norway and Japan, where they came away with a draw and a win. Those games, well, they were probably overshadowed by the World Cup that began a few days later. And as it's been well documented, Sarina Wiegman is yet to be beaten whilst in charge of the Lionesses. She's been in charge for 25 games, and she's never faced South Korea or Italy whilst being England manager, but did face Belgium last year in a friendly in the run-up to the Euros, which resulted in a 3-0 win. That also was at Wolverhampton at Molineux. This will be the 3rd time we've played South Korea, though. In 2011, we played them in the Cyprus Cup, winning 2-0, 2 goals from Sue Smith. And then the year before, 2010, we drew 0-0. Italy, on the other hand, this will be our 31st meeting, although the first since 2017. Our record against them isn't that good, though. In the 30 preceding games, Italy have won 14, there have been 6 draws, and England have won 10. And Belgium, like I said, the last meeting last year, that 3-0 win. But overall, the teams have met on 13 occasions. England winning 9, 3 have been drawn, and just the 1 lost. That was back in 1980. And as I normally do, I will be chatting with Rich Laverty very soon to get his take on the Lionesses, the tournament, and also the squad, which Sarina Wiegman announced on Tuesday the 7th. Let's take a look at that now. This is how it was announced immediately. I will add in any more amendments that may come, what with the Women's Super League having another round of games this weekend just gone. Before I do actually run through the squad, one thing I wasn't aware of, there is no restriction on the amount of players Sarina is allowed to select for this competition. This time, she's gone for 26. Last time out, she only picked 24. But here it is. Goalkeepers, 4 of them. Mary Earps from Manchester United. Sandy McKeever, Manchester City. Emily Ramsey from Everton. And Ellie Roebuck of Manchester City. Defenders, Millie Bright of Chelsea, Lucy Bronze of Barcelona, Jess Carter and Niamh Charles of Chelsea. Rachel Daly is selected as a defender. Of course, she's from Aston Villa, but she's been banging in the goals for Villa, so perhaps Sarina may shuffle her around if need be. From Manchester City, Alex Greenwood, Maya Letitia is back in. She's from Manchester United, and 2 from Arsenal, Leah Williamson, captain of course, and Lottie Wubben-Moy. In midfield, Laura Coombs from Manchester City. Fran Kirby from Chelsea, Georgia Stanway from Bayern Munich, Ella Toone and Katie Zellum from Manchester United, and Kira Walsh from Barcelona. And up front, Lauren Hemp and Chloe Kelly from Manchester City, Lauren James from Chelsea, Jessica Park from Everton, Alessia Russo from Manchester United, Katie Robinson from Brighton, and Ebony Salmon from Houston Dash. It's a squad with 679 caps across it, 102 goals, and it has an average age of 25. Now, just going back to those goalkeepers, Emily Ramsey, she is the only uncapped player in the squad. She's currently at Everton, but on loan from Manchester United. Be interesting to see how Sarina uses her, whether she's just going to evaluate her or whether she's going to get some time on the pitch. Lucy Bronze, I'm sure, will at some point win her 101st cap. She missed those games in Spain in November. And Laura Coombs, With only 2 previous caps to her name, she has made it back to the squad. She made those appearances back in 2015 on a tour of China. It's a squad made up of 6 from Manchester City, 5 from Manchester United and Chelsea, 2 from Everton, Arsenal and Barcelona, and 1 from Aston Villa, Bayern Munich, Brighton and Houston Dash. Of course, with the squad comes all the names, and of course there are some that don't make it. A few absentees, regulars usually for the Lionesses, Nikita Paris. Jordan Nobbs, she transferred to Aston Villa recently. She hasn't made it in. Hannah Hampton, goalkeeper. I'm not quite sure if we're going to be seeing her anytime soon, what with personal issues. Lucy Staniforth, Esme Morgan and Beth England aren't included. And I said on a recent episode, the one where I looked at the January transfer window, that Beth England, she doesn't seem to be 100% in Weigmann's vision, in my opinion. This despite a record-breaking move from Chelsea to Tottenham in January. And of course, no Beth Mead, who is still recovering from her ACL injury that she picked up in November of last year. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the Three Lions podcast, Rich Laverty. Hey, Rich.
Hi, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. Big year, this one, isn't it? 2023 all starts off with the Arnold Clark Cup and leading towards the World Cup.
Yeah, just off the back of one big year, straight into another one. So, they come pretty quickly at the moment with the scheduled the way it is. I always think February sort of is the sort of marker point of, like, that's the run-in, when we talk about like league football, you sort of get to March and you're like, okay, it's the run-in now to the end of the season. Yeah. And I always think February is sort of the real start of the run-in towards the World Cup, because it's when all these tournaments come along. Obviously Arnold Clark, you've got She Believes, Tournoi de France, and there's various others. There's obviously the World Cup playoffs as well, which will decide the last few spots. So I think it's interesting. It's obviously a very different lineup to last year. But yeah, I think they all sort of in their own way offer quite interesting tests for England. So yeah, I think it'd be a interesting few games, and I think really for England it's just seeing more the evolution of the team rather than a revolution at the moment, because it's a very similar squad, and obviously, you're not going to change something that has been so successful. So yeah, I think for England I think it's just about keeping going and keeping that momentum going into the World Cup, because right now, obviously, it's as good as it's kind of ever been, really.
Yeah, the squad I've obviously been through, looked at, but I also looked at last year's Arnold Clark squad for the Lionesses, and I've got a feeling that only 3 players who were in the Arnold Clark Cup squad didn't make it to the Euro squad, be it for injury in like Jordan Nobbs' case, or guess lack of form, or just choice. I think it was Niamh Charles and Katie Zellum who didn't make it, but were in the Arnold Clark one. This one, you got to say, is going to be fairly similar situation for the World Cup squad. It's just going to be a few, I guess, that Serena wants to try out.
Yeah, and I think that's why she's picked 26 players. Obviously, you're only going to get to take 23 to the World Cup. So, yeah, I mean, look, I think bar, any miraculous upturn in form from anybody, or, whether someone like Beth Mead comes back from injury, which probably seems unlikely at the moment, then it's not going to be a huge shock if your 23 for the World Cup comes from the 26 that are there at the minute. There are 1 or 2 out with sort of short-term knocks that might come back into the fold. But yeah, I think, that people talk about form and things like that. And I have this argument every international camp, that a national team manager is no different to a club manager. They want consistency. They want to work with a set squad and not have to chop and change, between February and April, and then April and July. So I think, if the squad looks significantly different in July, then something's happened somewhere down the line and people have got injured or, like you said, that there's your likes of Jordan Nobbs, that's just moved to get playing time and Lucy Staniforth and Beth England. And it'd be interesting to see if they carry on playing well, whether they get a look in at the end of the year. But the thing with national team football is, as soon as you're out, there is somebody else ready to take your spot. And it's usually someone that's younger and, that might be there longer for the future. And it's hard to work your way back in unless you really hit some kind of top, consistent form, which we've seen with Laura Coombs, for example, getting back in the squad at 32. So it's, for me, if the squad was 23 of those 26 come July, I wouldn't be, in the remotest bit surprised.
Yeah. Well, Laura Coombs is a really interesting one because, as I say, she's 32, and it was 2015 when she last played. She played 2 games in a tour of China, and I looked into it a little bit more, and she only came on as a substitute in both of those for literally the last minute of both games. Incidentally, at both times replacing Izzy Christiansen. But to get this opportunity again, and hopefully she can last a bit longer this time. She's got 3 opportunities. It's obviously a sign of the hard work that she's put in and been noticed.
Yeah, and she's deserved it. I think when she initially went to Manchester City, people sort of said, she'd probably be a squad player and, maybe not play every single week. And she probably was that for a while, but sometimes you get an opportunity. Obviously in the summer, Man City lost Kira Walsh, they lost Caroline Weir, they lost Georgia Stanway, and they didn't quite replace all of them. So Laura's been given that opportunity, and right from the first day of the season, she scored twice at Aston Villa. They lost the game, obviously, but she was probably their best player, and she's stayed in the team. She's played very, very well. She just signed a new contract, through to 2025. So, and yeah, I think sometimes you take your opportunities and sometimes things just fall for you. Maybe if she was in a different position, she wouldn't be in the squad. But, looking at the England squad, midfield is and always has been and probably is going to be for a while, where England have the least amount of depth at the moment. So I think there was always room for another midfielder. And I wrote in my piece, that before the squad came out, looking at who might get in, that maybe she was one that would have a chance based on her performances and based on the fact that they probably would look to bring another midfielder in. So, yeah, she's earned it. And I think, she brings a lot to it because she can play the defensive role. She can play further forward and score goals. So I think she deserves her opportunity. And yeah, like you say, hopefully we see her on the pitch for a little bit longer than she got last time.
Another one that has obviously caught Serena Wegman's eye is goalkeeper Emily Ramsey, the only uncapped player to feature in the squad. What do we know about Emily?
She's a very good young goalkeeper. She's come through the system at Man United. She's obviously gone out on loan a couple of times over the past few years, and this has probably been the biggest one for her in terms of she's playing in a team that obviously is in the top 6 of the WSL, and she's playing well, taking a little bit of time to get that number 1 spot. She's shared duties with Courtney Brosnan quite a bit at Everton, but, when she has played, she's played well, and, she's very imposing. She's a very, very tall goalkeeper, which, is always a help in the women's game. Some of the goalkeepers aren't obviously as tall as you see in the men's game. So she's quite an imposing figure. She's a very good shot stopper. So, and, she's young, she's got potential to improve as well. And I don't think it's any coincidence that there's 4 goalkeepers in there. I think obviously Mary Earps is pretty safe. I think Ellie Roebuck is pretty safe. And I think it's probably a shootout at the moment, between Sandy McKeever and Emily. So, yeah, I think they're both in there for that reason. And I think Emily's got a great chance. She came into one of the last senior camps when someone pulled out. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. But, yeah, I think she's another one that has just come off the development line and is very close now to being a senior England player.
I see. Well, from the back to the front, Lauren James scored a fantastic goal against Tottenham recently. Emma Hayes said afterwards, it's like she was giving praise on one hand, but then on the other saying that she's still got a lot to learn. But if she gets the opportunities in this tournament, this could be the one that sort of sets her going for the Lionesses, couldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've got no doubt Lauren will be in the Euro squad if she doesn't get injured. I think I've said it for a long time. She's a once-in-a-generation talent. I do think she stands above anything else we have in terms of just a natural, gifted talent with the ball. And the goal against Tottenham at the weekend probably just showed that. You know, she made something that was incredibly difficult look remarkably easy.
Yeah.
And she just has a way of doing that. And I think it's probably terrifying for other teams that obviously England have lost through different products. Obviously, Ellen White's retired and Beth Mead's obviously injured, but you know, they now have Lauren James coming into the squad. Jess Parker's come into the squad, who, you know, is another really technically gifted player. Ebony Salmon's now in there as well. And that's before, like I said before, you look at players not even in the squad like Beth England. So, you know, the amount of attacking depth England have got to change things up and very different types of players as well. You know, they're all very different players with very different skill sets. I think that's going to be huge for England in terms of their World Cup hopes. You know, we saw that at the Euros, the ability to change the attack and bring players on that had different, you know, skill sets. And those players now, like Chloe Kelly and Alessia Russo, that might go into the starting 11. And, you know, the question then is, where's the backup if the backup becomes the first team? And, you know, if your backup is Lauren James and Ebony Salmon and Jess Park and whatnot, then, yeah, you're in a pretty good position. So I think Lauren's going to be an England player now for at least another decade. And I think she's going to, I think Lauren James will be one of the best players in the world. I really do. And I've not seen someone that can do what she does and do it as easily as she does.
Well, the defences of Italy, Belgium and South Korea will be coming up against her. We know that Belgium and Italy, they were in the same group in the Euros last year. I think Belgium beat Italy, I've got a feeling. But what do we know about, obviously, well, South Korea as well? They're a little bit unfamiliar to us. What about the players from there and the styles that they're going to play?
I think they offer really interesting tests. I mean, I don't know how much of a say the FA and Serena have in selecting it because it's run by an outside agency, but I do believe the FA have, you know, some semblance of a, you know, discussion in which teams come over. And obviously on paper, it doesn't look as glamorous as last year's where you had England, Spain, Germany, Canada. But I think by design, they offer quite interesting. Look, at the end of the day, this is a build-up for the World Cup. So, you know, South Korea, quite similar style of play to China. I think they're a little bit further on, actually, than China at the moment. But obviously, China will be one of England's opponents at the World Cup. And Belgium and Italy maybe are quite different to what they'll face, but I think their two sides, you know, Belgium in particularly were very good defensively at the European Championships, and a couple of head coaches I spoke to immediately after the tournament said they were probably tactically one of the best teams. You know, they maybe didn't have the firepower up front to go further than they did, but they were very, very solid, very well structured, and I think that'll be really good for England because England are going to get treated differently now. You know, they're the champions of Europe and teams are going to bank up, teams are going to park the bus. And we saw that with Czech Republic, you know, before Christmas, and they got a 0-0 draw, you know, when you predicted that. So I think to come up against teams that maybe will bank up and will try and frustrate England is going to be a really good test because I think in a major tournament now, teams will approach England very differently to how they've done in the past, especially looking at that attacking depth, like you said, like we said before. So, yeah, there's some good players. I mean, South Korea are a very good technical team. Obviously, Ji So-young's over there, was at Chelsea for many, many years, but they've really improved a lot. They've got Colin Bell, who's an English manager, and they've had some good results. You know, that they've really frustrated some of the top teams in the world and got a few sort of 0-0s and 1-1s. Italy, I'm really interested to watch because they had a disastrous Euros, basically. They got absolutely hammered by France, went out in the groups, and they were probably dark horses for a few people because they've got a lot of good players. So yeah, I'll be quite interested to see how they've tried to turn it around going into the World Cup. So yeah, I think it's not as obviously glamorous on paper as last year's, but I think there's 4 quite interesting storylines that will all intertwine in terms of preparations for the World Cup.
The South Korea game is the one that I'm going to. It's at Milton Keynes. The other games being played in Coventry and Bristol. They're all, I think Bristol at the time of speaking has sold out, and I know the others have had all good ticket sales for them. So, I mean, the momentum from last year is still high, that people are still wanting to see the Lionesses, even in the depths of winter.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could put England anywhere now, and it would either be a sellout or close to a sellout. Last year, the Arnold Clark Cup games, England's were pretty full. The other ones, it was a bit of a struggle, in terms of times of day and things like that, which is just an issue when you've got back-to-back games. It's hard, obviously, people to get time off work in the afternoon if there's a game earlier, and people obviously, there's not as many travelling fans coming over, from those nations. But I think where England are concerned, it's going to be packed out now. And obviously you've got the finalissima in April against Brazil at Wembley. I've got no doubt that'll be, I think that sold out ages ago anyway, and it's 2 months away still. So yeah, I think, that's obviously a byproduct of, we've had a lot of new fans come on board, and everybody knows these players now, all of those names that were at the European Championships. Every single person knows who they are and what they achieved, and want to go and watch them. So yeah, it's had a massive effect on attendances, and I think where England are concerned, it will have that effect now for a long, long time, whatever happens.
Yeah, no, all household names. And you yourself, you had a chat with one of them recently for a new project you've got on the go. You spoke with Mary Earps.
Yeah, I always enjoy speaking to Mary. She's fun, but she tells it as it is as well. She's pretty honest, and I've gone over to the world of Substack now for a new challenge, and yeah, it's been interesting. And I'll be at all the games, sort of working out how to offer slightly different coverage, because obviously there's not a lot of point me doing what everyone else is doing and asking people to pay for it, because they're not gonna, if it's the same as what you can get elsewhere. So it's kind of an ongoing challenge for me to sort of shape and work out what coverage of games is going to look like. But yeah, it's been really interesting so far. I mean, it's less than a week in, but it's been fun, and yeah, something that I've wanted to do for a while. So yeah, I'm going to see how it builds. And yeah, I mean, it's like supply and demand. Obviously, the more people support it, the more successful it will be. But I've got to make sure that the content is good enough that people want to support it in the first place. Yeah.
No, I wish you all the best with that. From what I've read so far, really informative. Just finish it off. Obviously, under Sarina Wiegman, the Lionesses are unbeaten. Is it going to stay that way? Can we win this?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd be disappointed if England lost any of the 3 games, and that's not being arrogant or disrespectful. They're 3 good teams, but England are one of the best in the world. They've got a pretty full strength squad. They've got a lot of depth. Sarina historically doesn't make huge changes, so I think we'll see little changes between each game. So it should always be a pretty strong lineup. But look, it's football. You never know. Like I said, these teams, they'll all come and frustrate England and probably try and defend and hit them on the counter attack. And if a team does that successfully, you never know. But I think they'd be disappointed if they're not still unbeaten after this tournament, to be honest. And yeah, they should win it. I think last year it was very up in the air. I think any of the 4 teams could have won it, and it was very, very close. It went down literally to the final minutes. But I think England should win this, but I think they will be genuinely tough tests, all 3 of them.
Exciting times. Rich, thank you very much as always. And yeah, we'll speak again maybe ahead of that finalissima against Brazil, isn't it, in April?
Yeah, no problem, mate. It should be a good game.
Lovely. Cheers, mate. As always, many thanks to Rich there for his time. You can find him, of course, over on Twitter at Rich J Laverty, and his Substack site that he mentioned can be found at richlaverty.substack.com. Now, as predicted, there is a change to the squad. Following the weekend's rounds of WSL games, although actually this one occurred during Chelsea's midweek Continental Cup semi-final. Fran Kirby picked up a knee injury there and withdrew late on Saturday. And she was replaced by Jordan Nobbs of Aston Villa, who incidentally scored a hat-trick against Brighton at the weekend, in a game that Rachel Daly also scored in. And that is all I am aware of at the moment, as of time of recording, as the team begin to meet up at St George's Park. As per normal, I'll be looking to get a review of the games out once the competition is over. Hopefully, it'll be another successful one. As always, I hope you can join me for it. But before that, I've got another episode to put out, which I hope you'll find of interest. So stay subscribed and you won't miss it. Until then, take care of yourselves. Cheers.